trying to find a good one. My name is Nick. I'm a designer in upstate New York. Well, okay, this is kind of cool. I'm also a collector of vintage kitsch and am a freak for historic preservation. You may know me and my husband Patrick from our home, the Bootlegger Bungalow. All right, so this is one of the ones that's still in its original wrapper. It's really cool. Back in 2020, we ended up finding all these bottles of old smuggler whiskey. So we are pulling off part of our mudroom and we have discovered some hidden bottles from the Prohibition era. We were always told that our house was built by a bootlegger, and now we actually have some proof. And they're the coolest thing ever. It went a bit viral. You know, we had our 5 moments in the spotlight.
Well, a couple in upstate New York,
Nick and Patrick from New York,
found more than 70 bottles of decades-old whiskey.
I still can't believe that we found them in our house. We live in Ames. It's actually the smallest incorporated village in New York State. And we live 3 or 4 miles down the road from a partially abandoned mineral spa village called Sharon Springs.
Sharon Springs is a tiny little village.
I like that you drive down the hill, your phone most of the time stops working. So you're not like able to be reached and you can get a sense of quietness there. There's some nice shopping. You can have a bite to eat. It has a lot going on for such a tiny town.
We've been here for almost 40 years. And I love the town. And it's beautiful now. It's like when you come down the hill, it's almost like coming down into a French chalet. It's really, really nice.
It originally was built around the confluence of various mineral springs, some of the most potent in the country. And it used to draw people from all over the world. Oh, so here, look at this, Drew. The imperial baths are here. They weren't built yet. You could see some of the old bathhouses there.
This town was bustling, like in the 50s and the 60s. You couldn't even come down the hill driving. It would take you 20 minutes just to get downhill because there was so many people. When we first moved in this town, everything was completely abandoned. There wasn't anything, as far as you can see this way or that way, there wasn't anybody living here.
It sort of rose and fell very quickly.
I've always had an interest in the history of Sharon Springs, and I always felt bad when I drove through and saw all the decaying spas and stuff like that.
It's a nice, quiet town, and it's dying. I love that. The mayor of Sharon Springs, 1971. And he was right, it was dying. It basically became a ghost town by the time the 90s rolled around.
This town really is teeming with life just 50, 60, 70 years ago. So it almost feels like there really is like this sort of essence whispering through the walls to you.
So yeah, Sharon Springs, Petticoat Junction, The Shining, John Waters, Grey Gardens. Yeah, it's a quirky little place. And it's very gay.
This is my first album cover from 1997. This album was nominated for a Glamma Award in New York for a Best Female Vocalist. My breath is getting heavy. My name is Veronica Klaus, and I have lived in Sharon Springs for 8 years now. You would never expect has such an artistic, supportive, queer, friendly community within it in one of the reddest counties in the state.
Obviously, it's very rural. We're kind of in the middle of nowhere.
I always think of Sharon Springs as sort of like a gay town. Like that's where it succeeded, right?
This is a village that was built as a tourism destination. It was built for outsiders. If you were trying to put together a case study for like a typical little rural American town, Sharon Springs would be a horrible example. Probably half the businesses maybe on Main Street are all owned by people in the LGBT community. And that's not normal. That's not the typical case in these remote rural towns. And for whatever reason, there's a little oasis here. The first time I came out of the closet was in 7th grade. It was a broom closet in St. Mildred's Hall. I'd been forced inside by a group of classmates and locked in there. Basically, this was a somewhat derelict structure that the school owned, and it was across the street, so there was no staff in it. And so I just remember, I have this memory of being trapped in a broom closet all day, staring up at the ceiling, and there was this beautiful tin ceiling. It's gorgeous. It was, they'd added the closet, I think, and it was like a weird little corner of the original room. And I just remember thinking that was the most beautiful ceiling I'd ever seen. So yeah, you know, school was hard, and going home was worse. I come from a very conservative religious family, and the idea of the queer community is just not something that was looked upon in any positive way. So growing up gay wasn't the greatest for me as a result of not really having much support at home. I turned to abandoned buildings. I started exploring places around Maryland. There was this abandoned insane asylum in the town I grew up in. It was called Forest Haven in Laurel. The next logical step in some ways was Sharon Springs. A friend introduced me to Sharon Springs in my late teens, and I was pretty much instantly obsessed. I remember the first time I saw it, it was just this eerie, strange place. Just massive, boarded up abandoned hotels, just so full of history and stories. Reading about how it sort of started life as this sort of elite resort for the, you know, super wealthy, and then was sort of reclaimed as a place of healing for the Jewish community. I just think there's something really powerful in that reinvention.
So Nick got a job offer in upstate, so we came to visit first, and we explored the area a little bit, and then we decided we were going to move up here. Took us a minute to find a house because we have a lot of requirements.
It was a bit crazy. We were living in Baltimore at the time. I knew that we were interested in a more rural life maybe than what Baltimore had been for us. So I work as an architectural designer. I design and manage new custom homes, and also some historic restorations. So here, I'll show you one I'm working on. I was up at like 3 in the morning and I couldn't sleep on Marketplace, and I ended up finding an entire colonial paneled room on Marketplace for like practically nothing. And yeah, I talked to the clients, I told them they absolutely had to get it, and they loved it amazingly, and they got it, and now we're building a house around it.
Describe Nick.
Oh, you know,
Be careful.
Nick, it's a heart of gold.
I love Nick. He's a great guy. And his passion for all of his projects is great.
A little wacky.
Nick has very big dreams, very big goals, but he also seems unstoppable at getting shit done.
Here, I'll show you what the house actually, what the paneling looks like. So here is the interior. You can kind of see we're actually converting it to a corner unit, the paneling, but all the paneling we were able to make work. Everything's salvaged, even the Dutch door is salvaged. I don't know, I've always been incredibly obsessed with historic preservation, even as a kid. I remember when I was in like 7th grade or something, we had to do some sort of, I don't know, like a report or something about how we wanted to improve our community and what we would do. And, you know, everyone did all this altruistic stuff. And then I think mine was that I felt there should be stricter rules in the historic district so that people couldn't put in vinyl windows. I never stopped feeling that way. I think I was onto something. So Sharon Springs is interesting. So I've described it as a resort village. And so one of the things to keep in mind is that there originally was a primary resort, and that was the Pavilion. It was also known as the Pavilion Hotel and Cottages. In the late 1830s, they began construction on what was the oldest, largest, and most prestigious resort ever built in the village. It was the Grand Dame of Sharon Springs. Oh my God, so it's the Grand Dame?
If you're gonna say grand, say
The Grand
Dame.
The
It's
Grand Dame. The
but
Grand Dame.
Either say them both in French.
Well, is it
or
the
no.
Grand Dame or the Grand Dame? Which one does
That's
Sharon?
what I would say, because it's a French expression, Grand Dame.
Grand Dame. Grand Dame. That's what
Yes,
it should be.
but no.
Well, it's the Grand
a
Dame.
French expression, for God's sake. Say it in French.
And so you had the main hotel, and then you would have the cottages, which were these townhouse structures. And basically the cottages would be used for wealthier patrons that might be traveling with servants, essentially, or staff. If Sharon Springs was a boat, the Pavilion would be the anchor. At least it was the anchor. The Pavilion was torn down in 1940. It was around the same time that there were changes in national spa culture, transportation, World War II, and the Pavilion closed and was torn down. That was a pretty bad blow to the village. After the main hotel was torn down in 1940, everything was pretty much left to decline. The days of maintenance were gone, except one of the cottages was actually bought by the neighboring Adler Hotel. And so while most of the Pavilion was demolished, one building wasn't, and these were the HIJKL cottages. And so we basically decided to buy the cottages. And everything changed.
100 days, 100 nights.